Urana, my friends, and welcome. It's Jeff Adam, and welcome to our Aranui virtual vacation. The Marquesas Islands is about to be discovered, and to be discovered by you. You're going to learn on this journey how remote and what this ideal paradise is like. This wonderful piece of Polynesia, or French Polynesia. It's just amazing. You also get a chance to learn a bit about the Tuamotus, the Australs, the Gambia, and the Cooks as well. But this is all being brought to you by one group of very important people, our travel advisor mates. And the travel advisor is really there to give you peace of mind when it comes to customizing a vacation. They give you service, maximize your budget, they give you better choices, and they save you time. And that personal service and the insights and expertise they provide in creating documents that will assist you on your journey. And then they're also a consumer advocate. They're there to look after you, even when you're traveling. They've got great industry contacts, and they bring it all together. So to my travel advisor mates, I'd like to say Marururoa, which means in English, thank you very much. And incidentally, when it comes to traveling, language is something that you're going to somewhere exotic. I love the fact when you go to Tahiti, when you go to French Polynesia, yes, they speak French, they speak Tahitian, but what makes the Marquesas even more important is they have another language as well, the Marquesans. And so let's have a quick look at some of the words you might use when you're in the Society Islands. The Society Islands, of course, are Tahiti and Bora Bora, Moorea. Welcome, you would say, Maeva, Maeva. Good morning, you would say, Orana, Orana. How are you is Eha Toi Huru. Thank you is Marururo, Maruru. And then in the Marquesas Islands, a general greeting, like a welcome, might be Koa, Koa. Are you okay? Would be Mete Oe. How are you is Ea Te Oi Hakutu. Ea Heo Takutu. And then thank you is Kawatu Nui or Vanei. Vai. So it's interesting there with that word thank you that in different parts of the Marquesas Islands, there's actually a different word for the same meaning. And it's interesting because within the Marquesas Islands, they're the youngest of all the islands within French Polynesia. And the nature of the villages are some of them are just trapped in these valleys between towering mountain peaks. And it's this remote location of the villages with no access to the outside world that's meant even within a small group of islands, there are different dialects spoken. Quite fascinating. For you traveling, it's important to know a little bit about the islands you're visiting. It's also good to actually have a few words under your belt. For example, Te'u means milk, whereas Tahu means fart. You've got to be careful. You don't want to fall into mistakes. So what we'll do through your travel advisor, we'll actually put together a little Tahitian guide on how to speak when you're there. It's an important piece to have in your wallet, in your purse, when you're doing an offshore excursion. It's lovely to be able to greet people with a local word. You don't have to speak in the entire tongue of the local village you're visiting, but just a welcome, just a hello, a thank you will make the big difference into how you're perceived and just make you feel so much more warm and welcomed when you're there. Now, French Polynesia is broken up into 5 main island groups or archipelagos. We're going to visit today Tahiti. We'll arrive in Tahiti, and you'll also incorporate within the Aranui experience Bora Bora. Then, with that, I should point out with the Society Island group, this is probably in the second stage of an island's evolution. The first stage is volcanic mountain peaks through volcanic action, and then the second stage is what's happening here. You've got your volcano in the center, and then you've got this lagoon that's been formed. You've got this fringing coral reef, like this big motu, that circumnavigates the entire island, creating this lovely lagoon. That's these 3 different shades of blue. It is absolutely a jewel of the South Pacific. Then you've got the second group is the Tuamotus. Now, this is the oldest stage because what's happened here is the actual island in the center has actually broken down and gone back into the sea. But what remains is a ring of coral, like these big, giant, tempered baths, teeming with tropical life and fish, and it's just phenomenal. And here at Whakarava, which you will visit on your Aranui cruise, you'll get a chance to see how people live out on the Motu, beneath swaying palms. Then the youngest area is the Marquesas. And this area here is the destination. This is our journey. We're going to head here in the Aranui because a lot of the Marquesas Islands, the only access is provided by this vessel, the Aranui. And you'll see the islands are jagged mountain peaks, very tall and towering spires, and they've got fringing coral reefs. They don't actually have the developed lagoons at this stage. They're in their first stage of evolution. They're dripping with rainforest, surrounded by waters, and they're just quite the allure. Little villages tucked in these tight little valleys, amazing. Then you've got an older area called the Gambia, and the Gambia you'll find the Managira and the barrier reef system they have in here. There's about 5 islands within that one break in the Gambias. The Australs, these are all very remote. To get to the Australs again, it would be by sailing, or it'll be included in the journey aboard the Aranui. And for people who are fascinated by tropical islands and remote paradise, look at some of these little paradises. You can only imagine some of the few people that visit these remote areas are coming aboard the Aranui. The Aranui provides great access to the Marquesas Islands and beyond. And the journey itself, of course, the focus being the Marquesas Islands. What's interesting about this region is that they are very much prolific sailors. In fact, all of French Polynesia, the Polynesians, of course, came in these outrigger sailing canoes, and they kind of traveled over immense distance to get there. In fact, they've found a day's head, that's the stone axe you might see. The stone actually comes from the Marquesas, and it's been found as far away as the Gambia Islands, the Austral Islands, the Society Islands, and as far away as the Cook Islands. And they actually trade. They would use their sailing vessels, their canoes, and they would sail out and they would trade. And so it's quite interesting to see that this basalt stone that's been found far afield, up to 1,500 miles away from the Marquesas Islands. So they're big traders, and they really did spend within their enclave of islands. I mean, existence was based on, they basically supported themselves by fishing, collecting shellfish, hunting birds and gardening. And they relied heavily on breadfruit as a crop, and they also raised about 32 other introduced crops. And of course, all this was done through trade. And I see these islands, like I say, they're jagged mountain peaks, and lots of little villages are tucked in. There are people that have not left some of these islands that still remain. And all the islands have got names that are related to the building of a house. And that came from a very ancient story. The house we speak of, as legend has it, was basically the beginnings of ancestral spirits. The goddess of Atanua and the god Otea were sailing for days and weeks. They carried on with no land in sight. Her husband was not able to say when they might reach land, and they were carrying breadfruit seeds, and they were looking to set up a new home. And Atanua she got a bit mad. She was kind of worried, and she was a bit bored, and she said, what's going on here? Well, we need to find a spot. We need to do it now. And with that, they finally decided to make her husband work, and the goddess Atuna urged her husband to build a house, as they had none. And he made that decision, and as night fell in darkness, he selected the first island, called Uapu. And Uapu actually means the posts, the pillars. And you'll find here, this Uapu, you'll find that they have these towering pillars of basalt that are right in the center of the island. They sit up above the actual surrounding mountains. And Uatea thought it was perfect for the house. And the tiki on the right-hand side, by the way, the stone they find, it is a rare flower stone that you can find here in Uapu. And so it's a great opportunity. Then he needed the ridgepole that would go across and he selected Hivaoa for the ridge. And it's here that at Pumau that you'll find they've got this wonderful little bay and on Hivaoa. It's actually the capital is Atanua, where in Atanua Bay we will find the resting place actually for Paul Gauguin. It's also the second largest tikis in the world, next to Easter Island, are found here. Then for the beams and rafters, Nukahiva, that's what Nukahiva means, the beams and rafters. He went to the largest of islands, and that's where they found them, and of course that's the name, hence Nukahiva. And Nukahiva in Hatao is where you've got this beautiful white sand beach. You can do these fabulous walks. Actually, American author Herman Melville wrote his first travel and adventure book back in 1846. This is the beginning of the allure of French Polynesia to Americans. This American author wrote a book called Tipi, and it was a peep at Polynesian life based on his experience there. I had to imagine that he was living here at a time when cannibals still existed too. Then for the roof, they needed, of course, woven coconut frond to thatch the roof. So he called Fatu Hiva, 9 thatchlings. And there's an example of a little village, Oma, that's kind of stuck between these giant mountain peaks. I mean, trapped in time. People living here, some wouldn't even know what's on the other side of the island. Just phenomenal. And this Bay of Virgins, as they refer to it, this mountain peaks, they refer to this as the Bay of Virgins. And from here is where they actually make the tapas cloth. And you'll get to learn a bit about that in this presentation. Then, as the sun was rising, the morning rays of sunshine, he called this island Tahuata. And this is a ray of light at dawn. That's what they refer to as a ray of light at dawn. And it was pretty much finished. His house was built, and so here he had a chance. And it's here that they actually, rays of light are often adorning this gorgeous Catholic church. It's here that they are quite the different islands have got different specialties, and here they're very big on bone carving. So it's incredible how cultural clings to various crafts occur right throughout the islands. So you'll learn a little bit about that. This gorgeous beach too, the Tuatu beach. It's a great beach after a nice walk. And then finally, the final act was to tidy things up. She wasn't going to let him get away with leaving a mess, was she, eh? Then all the leftovers from the building he stored on Uahuka. And this is the reserve of the gods. Yes, Uahuka. And it's also the reserve some fabulous experiences like the Bay of Papeete, where they do this a fabulous 3-point turn. You get to understand why this Aranui vessel is so important to the access of these islands, because some are seemingly impossible to visit, and you'll learn soon why. And this island here, of course, is where you'll see wild horses and goats, and also you'll see the red tikis. So it's quite a precarious docking maneuver they do there. And then Otia named this grouping of islands. He called it Te Henanu Inanna, Te Henanu Inanna, which means the land of men. Well, the women are going to have something to say about that, because there are 4 women to every man here. So I don't know what the women are doing, but the odds aren't looking good. Well, they're looking good for somebody, hey? So yes, this is the Island of Men. That's the Marquesas Islands are referred to as the Island of Men. And what's interesting about this collective of islands is that access to them is very limited by air. There's very limited air service. In fact, the islands of Tahuata and also Fatuhiva is only given access by water. So some of these islands are so remote and so inaccessible. It's the isolation that I find just alluring. The fact that you can live out here. It's no wonder there were artists like Gauguin and writers like Robbie Louis Stevenson and explorers that want to escape this part of the world, because it's so remote. And the vessel that's going to offer the access is the Aranui. The Aranui offers this wonderful Polynesian adventure, and in itself, it comes from amazing history. I mean, back in the 1954, in fact, it was first started up. Now, the Mr. Wong was the original owner of the vessel, and he actually had a general store in Papeete, right next to the marché, and he was doing quite well. And his cousin decided that he wanted to set up a little shipping venture where they were just a small vessel that would go to the Tuamotus, and it would basically then build on and go to the Gambier Islands, and they were delivering food and clothing and hardware. So it was perfect because he could use his little general store as a means to kind of go out and bring the shop to the people, so to speak. While he was out there, he would purchase copra and coconut and fish, and he would bring it and sell it back in the markets. So this little venture kind of pushed along quite nicely, and eventually they decided to purchase a wooden freighter. They actually purchased it from New Zealand, and it was called the Aranui, and they bought that in about 1960. And it was named, it's actually Aranui, happens to be a Polynesian name, but not a Malaysian Polynesian, not even a Tahitian Polynesian, but a Maori Polynesian. Yes, a New Zealand Polynesian. So the Aranui is a Maori name. So it stayed, and this vessel initially only had passage for a small number of people. In fact, you actually sleep under the stars on the deck. And that was the start of this idea. Well, people want to travel, because people did want to travel from the cities and between the various towns and islands. They found it as a great means to catch up with cousins and family, do shopping. So then the Aranui 1 in 1984 was built, and this vessel was purchased from Germany, and it had enough room for about 26 people. The next vessel, the Aranui 2, was built in 1990. And it had room for 90 passengers. It was actually a modified. They took it to Hamburg and they had them build on the back end. They designed these cabins on the back so people could actually stay. So that was that, 90 passengers. Then in 2003, the Aranui 3. This is the first custom built. It was actually built in Romania. Now, Michael, who is the rep here in North America for the Aranui, he's the sales manager. He's actually going to be on our call today. So if you've got any questions for Michael, he's got some great stories about these old vessels. In fact, on the Aranui 3, he actually went across to actually collect the vessel. And when they were coming back, they actually they stopped into. This is just before Christmas. They were picking this vessel up, and actually on Christmas Day they pulled into port in Turkey. And they actually had a turkey in Turkey for Christmas. Nice little Christmas turkey, eh? But you can see the vessel, how it's built, purpose-built on the front there, all the cranes and shipping containers and so on, and the back is your accommodation. Well, the vessel we have today is referred to as the Aranui 5, and the Aranui 5 is just perfectly built. It's built to really give access to the freight, which is a very important part. It was custom built in actual China and has a capacity at the same time for 230 passengers. So it's currently working about 50%. So you're looking at about half that number are currently traveling. There's plenty of room to social distance, and it was here they custom designed it to actually have a lot of these balconies and suites. So it's really come into its own. The front of the vessel, its primary mission, of course, is to actually take cargo, and they're taking food and construction materials and equipment, cars and livestock, and it's just exciting to watch the activity when they pull into port and you see these bags of goods being weighed, and there's all these four-wheel drives and the shipping containers. I mean, 2/3 of everything that goes into and out of the Marquesas is going aboard the Aranui. I mean, you're coming out here, and they're kind of bringing out their copra, their coconut, their fruit. They've got lemons and pamplemousse and noni juice. Noni juice they put in big blue barrels and vats. It's got a bit of a nose to it, but it's supposed to be really good for your health. So, but it's amazing to see this. That's its primary mission, and of course it's also, as a vessel, it also moves islanders between the islands, so they can go in to see a doctor, or they can go and see other islands and visit cousins, and it's kind of used by the locals. So it's amazing to watch this workhorse, this freighter. I mean, I've nicknamed it the mullet, because look at the front part of it, the old mullet, the haircut of the 80s. It's the business at the front and the party at the back. Yes, you'll get the feel for it when we kind of go through it. It's got 10 decks. The top deck, the 10th deck, is the bridge. That's where the captain will be he's doing all his manoeuvres from up there. In fact, when he's not going into port, you can actually go up there and have a chat to them and have a coffee and just learn a bit about the whole journey. And it's a lot of fun to take that in. And also up on that deck is the presidential suite, which is pretty amazing. I'll talk about that in a moment. On deck 9 is where you'll have the sky bar. Now, the sky bar is directly below the bridge and the front there, and it overlooks the cranes and all the activity. So I love to be in the sky bar. I mean, you can see everything that's going on. On that same sky bar deck, you've got deluxe and superior deluxe suites. On deck 8 is the sun deck. There's lovely deluxe, superior deluxe, and royal suites on the 8. And then on 7, it's the pool deck. The pool deck, of course, is at this lovely swimming pool, but on that same deck, you've got deluxe, premium, and royal suite. On deck 6 is the veranda bar with premium royal suites. And then on deck 5, it's the lounge state rooms. So your royal suites, they've got picture windows. Then on deck 4 is the restaurant. That's the Class C deck, and there's shared dorms. So that tends to be locals who are just using the vessel to get point A to point B. So it's a Class C deck. It's not something you would sell in the North American market. The reception is deck 3, which is the main deck, and that's got standard porthole rooms, which are quite nice. And then the lower deck is the regular staterooms with portholes as well. So that's on deck 2. So it's really well configured. I just love the whole nature of it. And one of the high points is actually that pool deck. When you look down at the pool deck, it's like this natural amphitheater. It's perfect little amphitheater. And they have a few events when you're traveling, these Polynesian nights. So you can sit up, you can actually be above it and look down into this gladiator pit of activity and adventure. You've got these big Marcasian men doing their pig dance, and it's electric. Or you can be down on the same deck with them and getting up and learning a few moves. You know, it's a lot of fun. I mean, to have a table next to the dance floor is a lot of fun if you like to dance. But if you prefer to take it all in, get one above. Now, the Aranui reception area is an important part of the vessel. This is, of course, where you'll first get your keys and anything you need to take care of. It'll be happening here. Right opposite there is a little kiosk where you've got some little general store. You can purchase items you might need through the course of the journey. It's also here that you will gather when you're doing daily excursions. So, yes, it's quite important to know where this is. And then the Sky Bar, my favourite place. I spent a bit of time up in the Sky Bar because of that view. I love the view over the front to watch the cranes working. I saw them pick up a cow one day, pick up a cow using the crane. It was just fun to watch. I mean, it's just amazing. To me, it's the romance of being aboard a freighter. At the same time, you've got as you can see, all the creature comforts, all the luxury, but you really feel like you're close to all the action too. Speaking of action, this lounge area is a common area where they'll do guest lectures. They'll have pareo demonstrations. They'll meet here to discuss the next day's activities, because a lot of the onshore excursions are included and incorporated in your vacation. So here is where you'll meet to discuss what's going to happen, so your expectations are met. Now, as far as the people you're traveling with, half of them will be French, a quarter will be German, and a quarter will be English. Now, I say English speaking. They'll be from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the US, the UK. So that'll be that's a general mix. They're the main groups of people that travel. So when they have these meetings, they'll break off into different areas, and you'll go off with your group and you'll kind of learn about what your activities will be that day. And the reason why there's so many French is because the French get 5 weeks vacation. Oh, I wish I was living in France. But anyway, that's another story. The veranda bar is quite the attractive spot. There's a lot of fun going on here. In fact, in the evening, they have a happy hour that goes from 5 to 6:30. Plenty to be happy about. They'll put on some karaoke. You'll get up there and make a fool of yourself and sing some tunes. There's an Aranui band. The band members are actually the crew. You know, the chef will come out and somebody somebody behind the bar will come out. They'll get the ukuleles out. They'll sing, and it's just a really fun place. And they do encourage You need to make friends with it's not like, the crew go off and do their own thing. You actually get a chance to mix and mingle with the crew, which is really important because the crew themselves are from the Marquesas. In fact, there's crew members who come from all 5 archipelagos. So when you're traveling, you can actually sit and have a chat. You can catch up with people and say, you said you were from the Australs. We're not going to the Australs, but I'd love to have a chat about what was it like? Where did you grow up? And it's honestly, people are so open and friendly. When you show interest, when you know a few words in the local Marquesan, all of a sudden they just open up to you like a flower. They're just beautiful people. The restaurant itself, the Aranui restaurant, they do breakfast is typically a buffet, and then lunch and dinner are plated, and they have 2 seating times, like a 12 and 12:30 for lunch, or 7:30 and 8 for dinner. And you'll find that whole process of a lot of social distancing. What they've done is they've made sure that there's plenty of social distancing, and they've really designed the dining experience. Every day is a different fare, and the 3 main dining, or this fusion of food, you might say, is French, Tahitian, and Chinese. And at top, and kai kai matai, kai means eat, and matai means good, so it's good eat, and you won't get a better combination. And when you think about this remote, pristine French Polynesian islands, or the Marquesan Islands, and you think about the food, the fresh seafood, the fresh fruit, it's like sweet, sticky, tropical fruit, and so you've got this Polynesian fare. You've got this fabulous French cooking know-how colliding together. I mean, the French are known, nouvelle cuisine, fantastique. And then you bring in Chinese. There's nothing like the clean purity of a good, wok-cooked Chinese fare. And in fact, that there in the bottom left-hand corner, that's chow mein with shrimp and chicken and egg. Oh, fantastic. And the food is just phenomenal. You get a chance to savor all sorts of local food as well. And I got to say, the highlight for me, and of all the things you'll kind of think is strange, was the pastries. Oh my goodness me, French pastries are just to die for. They don't over-sugar them. You know what I'm saying? It's just enough to make you want to go back and have more. It's nuts. Now, accommodation-wise, you've got some choices. The presidential suite, which is right on number 10, there's one of those, and it consists of 3 individual rooms. It's approximately about 440 square foot of interior space with a 40-foot private balcony, and it's quite spacious. You've got your bedroom is separate from, with a lovely king-size bed. You've got a sitting room with a sofa bed, and a lounge, and a built-in bar, and a flat-screen TV, and all the mod cons. Then you've got your royal suite. There's 6 of these royal suites, and 2 of them have obstructive views, slightly obstructed, but they're approximately about 240 square feet, with a 30-foot private corner balcony that looks towards all the action that's happening there in the front of the vessel, so you can take in. If you're kind of like me, you'd be drawn to stay here. That's where I'm going to go next time. King-size bed, twin beds, depending on the configuration you need, they can make that happen. And then you've got the superior deluxe stateroom. And these are just delightful. There's 24 of them. Each one of these staterooms is about 43 square foot private outdoor balcony. So we'd sit out there with our little cocktail, my wife and myself. Inside is about 160 square foot of interior space. You've got lovely king-size bed, bathroom, wardrobe, flat-screen TV, fridge, safe, hairdryer. It's all in there. Then the staterooms, there's 32 of these, and plus also a further 8 with obstructive views. And the interior of the space is measured about 118 square foot. And these offer these staterooms with these square picture windows, as you see. So you've got a choice of king size or twin, 2 singles. So and again, all the modern cons and it's just delightful. Really, that is where most North American clients are going to be traveling, and they're traveling in style. At the same time, they are aboard the Aranui, which is a master of the Marquesas. And this particular bay, Ulahuka, is actually quite a precarious little spot here to drop a tender. So they tether the vessel to big pylons on either side of these 2 arms of land, and it's quite amazing to see this all happen. And only a vessel like the Aranui can get into this area. Now, when you board, of course, you've got great onboard entertainment. I mentioned the staff there from the Marquesas. These are a lot of the cooks. They come together and they do a wonderful Polynesian night, Cajun dance and song. And you'll be able to have an opportunity to partake in traditional ants yourself. And it's totally immersive. And in the night, around the bar, they'll get the drums out, and the guitars, and it's just a fabulous experience to hear them singing and to join in. And also, there'll be traditional crafts activities that you can also take part in, onboard entertainment. And then you're always ready for adventure. You've got these custom-built flat-bottom boats that can land absolutely anywhere. It's like you're on some Nat Geo expedition as you pull in to the beach, like pulling into the beach in Normandy. Out they drop the front of the boat out, and you walk straight into the water, and off you are on an adventure. Here in Nuka Hiva, you get a chance to meet up and to go to these archaeological sites. I mean, they are Malaysian and not Tahitian. They've got their own language, their own culture. So you'll learn a lot about that. You'll kind of go into these famous archaeological sites, and beneath this giant banyan tree, this amazing experience of culture will kind of unfold. I mean, it's hard to believe, but the human sacrifice was common right throughout Polynesia. But here, within the Marquesas Islands, it was still being practiced up until the late 1800s. So this is an exotic. This is like one of the last bastions of true adventure and adherence for you, a chance to meet these people and learn about their past, to learn how they exist, how they make tapa out of tree bark, learn of their culture and their heritage by these wonderful marine museums at Uahuka. And then also to pick up on the history of explorers and artists and novelists like Paul Gauguin here, and visiting his grave and taking in his incredible collective of art. I mean, he was quite a prolific artist while he was here. And it was the Marquesas Islands that really brought out the best of him. You can also do other activities too, optional activities like deep sea fishing. You can go on hikes into the interior of some of these islands. You can go horseback riding, and you can, at the same time, you can relax in the crystal clear waters that kind of lap up against white sand beaches. The Aranui itself offers you great access to an amazing array of experiences, and none better than snorkeling the ocean's Garden of Eden. Perhaps snorkel or maybe even dive. And for those that are divers, these can be organized and best discussed prior to travel. But the true attraction is the people themselves. And you'll feel when you're here, apart from the friendship you make on board the Aranui itself, you'll actually, when you visit these little villages and you see the crew engaging with family, meeting up with their kids, meeting up with their wives, their husbands, because it's just a delightful experience. You really feel connected. You feel connected. To be connected and be so isolated is just quite an extraordinary experience. So let's have a quick look at what the classic itinerary will behold. I mean, the Marquesas Islands, the Tuamotu, and the Society Islands are brought together. Starting off in Tahiti, which is in the Society Islands, you would then make your way through to Whakarava. Whakarava is in the Tuamotu archipelago. And from there, you would head through to the Marquesas archipelago. And you will spend most of your time exploring these islands and learning about the culture, the people, the language. Then we'll leave there finally and come back through the Tuamotus, and we'll drop into Rangiroa. And from Rangiroa, we'll head to Bora Bora, which nearly needs no introduction. As your final port, you'll then leave Bora Bora and back into Papeete, into Tahiti. So let's look at day one. Boarding Aranui, heading for Whakarava. Now, I've got to point out too, before you leave home, you will need to have a test, a COVID test performed. It will be an RT-PCR test, And with that test, you will receive a negative result. It'll need to be negative for you to travel anywhere, a negative result. So with that piece of paper with your passport and another form that you'll fill out, that's all you'll need when you get to the airport to board your flight. And once that's cleared, you'll fly across. When you arrive into the airport here in Tahiti, the island of Tahiti, the Wha'a International Airport, you will then be transferred. You actually go into the office of the Aranui, and you'll be tested once again, because you'll be overnighting here in Papeete, one night, one or two, depending on how, it's normally depends on the flight coming in as to how that will be determined. But if you're flying in with Air Tahiti Nui, you'll just need one night. You should get your results back within 24 hours, and it will be another RT-PCR test. So they're making doubly sure that everybody on board this vessel, the Aranui, all the crew, the captains, everybody, and all the guests have been tested more than once, and therefore it's a very clean vessel. And you're going to a pristine part of the world, so you want to make sure that there's no carrying, because we don't want to take people into these Marquesas Islands with harboring anything untoward. You want to be feeling like you are free of it all, and that in itself is quite liberating. When you get on board here, you're ready to relax, because you know you've had 2 tests within a period of 4 days, and you know you're good. So you'll check in, you'll get into your room, and off you'll go. Now, Whakarava is our first port of call, and Whakarava itself is actually a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, and it's a wonderful collective of a credible marine underwater world. So it's you'll actually come sail into the lagoon itself, and you'll pull up and into Roatava Main Street. You'll actually get out, and it's all the buildings here built of coral with the lovely Rotoa church here is quite amazing. Actually, on a Sunday, it's quite spectacular, and just to stand at the back and hear the beautiful singing voices, to feel like you're a part of society, to wander through, maybe go exploring, go and snorkel that incredible lagoon, take in with a little snorkel or a swim, and maybe get a bike and just go for a little cycle. They've got both electric bikes as well, or you could do a little tour. So it's a fabulous little stop before we head off and continue our journey. This is time at sea. From day 3, you'll be heading across, and you'll be out to sea. And it's here you can relax out on the deck. You'll be able to enjoy lectures of the Marquesas culture and history. You'll actually be learning a bit about the culture, learning about the people, learning how to dance, the true Tahitian dance. There'll be social evenings. You'll get together in the bar. They'll have karaoke. They'll be dancing. It'll be a lot of fun. And you'll sail into Nukuhiva. You'll awake here in Nukuhiva. In fact, you'll hear the sound of the conch shell, ooh, as the Marquesans are down on the waterfront calling you in. It's just a wonderful welcome. You'll have breakfast for your alight, and then you'll get into groups, and off you'll charge. And you'll meet up with your 4-wheel drive tour guides, and they'll take you into the interior. You'll learn about the culture of the people. You'll go to a local cathedral, Notre Dame of Teoa. And you'll also do a little shopping in the local Nukuhiva markets, and visit this giant banyan tree. Look at the size of the people standing below this incredible banyan tree. And that stage is set, and with a chance to visit the Mia Kamihili petroglyphs, and this Papeete stone platform where lots of sacrifice would have gone. You actually kind of take in a performance here by the locals with this Marquesian pig dancers. Quite impressive, let me tell you. You'll also get a chance to have a truly Marquesian lunch. You couldn't get a better welcome than to be actually invited to enjoy a lovely uma, which is the underground oven. The food is cooked up, and it's got a wonderful flavour to it. You'll also get a chance to do a little village visit. Hatuhia, and and you'll get a chance to just take in a little hike with this little village, and take in the Vai and Tuahai, and the Tuahai village as well. You'll come down into the Tuahai village, you'll cross the actual, and you'll basically get a chance to pick up. And then on day 5, you'll arrive at Uahuka. So you'll leave in Uahuka, and that's that little bay area I was talking about, where there's this precarious little docking that they tethered the vessel itself. They tie it up to either side of the cliffs. Now, the water going through here is rising and falling up, sometimes like 10 to 15 feet up and down. And these little guys, they'll be on their boats. They'll take this big, heavy rope, and they'll tether and they'll tie this vessel up either side so it's safe within this bay. Then you'll be picked up in 4-wheel drives, and you'll take off into the interior. You'll travel by forwards and explore the island, stopping to take in the stunning views of the Pacific on Uahuka. And you'll also visit with an ex-mayor who established this Aranui botanic garden setting, and he'll take you through all the food that's grown here, the star fruits, and explain what is growing in this lovely garden that he's set up. You'll also explore the cultural centre at Tuma, and it's a chance to take in the environment. You'll see as you're driving through this area, Uahuka, wild horses, a lot of wild horses through here. In fact, if you're keen, you can go horseback riding, quite the adventure, and then go into the Okatu Petroglyph Museum local woodcarver's studio. So it's in this area too that you'll get a chance to visit this open air temple with all these tikis and actually there's this red tough tiki. They're made of this red stone, quite stunning. And you'll be able to shop here, do a little shop for arts and crafts, and it's here that they're known for the carving of the coconut. So different islands and different markets, they've got different specialties. So it's here, it's all about the coconut and the tiki as well. But the coconut is, really well designed. Then day 6, the soaring mountain spires of Uapo. And it's quite unique and it's just incredible. They reach up and touch the sky. It's amazing. So Uapo is where you'll get a chance to head out once we board. We'll unload and lots of the crew will actually be unloading supplies. You can watch this all happen. It's actually fun to kind of take it all in, to see the goods being brought in. There's lots of from everything from cement to sugar, stacks of copra, dried coconut meat and fruits, and it's just fun. Noni juice, amazing. Now Hakahua Church is just this prominent church, and it's, the carvings, the main doors are beautifully ornately carved, and so too is the wooden dais that you'll see inside the church that the priest would stand. It's actually learning and understanding the role that religion played in turning what were essentially savages. I mean, they were still, like I said, late 1800s, they were still eating each other. And of course, the church has managed to take them on a different path now, and it's fabulous to kind of come through here. And in fact, there's a fabulous walk. Speaking of church, you can walk up to this cross on the hill, and it's spectacular views. It's not too hard a walk, but a good test nonetheless. A lovely lunch is laid on, Marquesan lunch, where the food itself you'll try and sample goat and curried goat and white rice and breadfruit fritters, and you get a chance to do what the locals do. Another dish, poisson cru, which is one of my favorite dishes. When I came back from being in Tahiti, I learned how to make this, so I can make this now for my wife. But it's essentially raw fish, but it's cooked in lime juice. The lime juice actually cooks it, and coconut, and just served with hot steaming jasmine rice. It is a magic dish, let me tell you. And here, they love to do the bird dance. It's quite phenomenal. Then we arrive into Hiva Oa. And a lot of these journeys are happening overnight. So you're kind of waking up to this beautiful journey of arrival. And this beautiful Teona is a gorgeous, the second most populated village in all of the Marquesas. It's here that Paul Gauguin Cultural Centre is. This is where Gauguin spent much of his time, productive time, I might add. He was a prolific artist in his period here. He had what they call the House of Pleasure, which probably doesn't need any description. I think his bride was in her teens, to give you an idea. Yes, he was quite the rogue, but he did produce some amazing art that in itself has captured the enthusiasm and interest of the world. And it's become quite the draw for people to head to Tahiti to pick up on what he was saying. You feel it when you're there. And at this beautiful cemetery, you had this great views, and Gauguin's grave sits there below a beautiful tree, a frangipani, the scent of frangipani, and the actual grave itself is just Paul Gauguin, 1903. That's all it says. Another grave you might see is Jacques Brel. He was a very famous Belgian. He was a wonderful singer. Back in the 60s, he was cutting the rug, and all through Europe, he was like one of the number one singers in Europe. He actually did very well in the US, and there were quite a number of songs that were translated, but yes, you'll also get to hear of him. It's interesting how these stars, these guys and gals at the height of their careers would just leave everything behind and to live in this remote Polynesian paradise. Or you'll sail to Kokua Beach in Tuatu, and it's here, this beautiful white sand beach is back, a wonderful relaxing afternoon, perhaps after doing a wander through and checking out the incredible archaeological site. This is the largest collective of tikis within this group of islands. In fact, they're only second to the tikis in terms of size. To that you'll see in the Easter Islands group. So yes, here in Hiva Oa, you'll get a chance to take in this incredible archaeological site, and it's going with obviously a person of knowledge. It's just marvelous to wander through and just to learn about the significance of each of the tikis, and quite amazing. Then we set sail from Tuatu, and you're arriving here. Look at the backdrop, that wonderful little town. We walk through this little town, and the fragrance of tiare scenting the air. You'll go and visit the lovely Catholic church, which is actually built by the Vatican. Yes, making sure they stamp the Catholic presence in the area. Beautiful stained glass. The interiors are using local timbers and stone. It is just delightful. And it's here that their craftsmanship, you'll see it in the carvings within the church, but you'll also see it, their bone carving, their timber work. Their carving is exceptional, and in particular with bone carving. From there we go to Fataiva, the land, the island of the Tapa, and it's here you'll arrive and be greeted by these wonderful tikis right there on the ocean front, and you'll learn about how they make tapa. You'll see the demonstration and how they decorate tapa as well. And each of the symbols has a significance. And so when you're purchasing your tapa, you're purchasing it based on something that's important to you. Something that's important to girls over here was the making of this kumehe. Now, kumehe is actually a collective of these plants, and it's like a little, they call it a sweet little love bundle. It's all these intoxicating scents and aphrodisiacs are brought together. You've got tiare flowers, you've got jasmine, and you've got ginger, and they kind of pull all these. It's like some little potion, and they put them all together. And the women would actually put them and tuck them up under their hair to get that lovely scent. The whole purpose was to catch a man. That's right. So that's the exact little bundle. You get a chance to make one of those there. You also get a chance to shop for a nice pareo, and to pick up a nice pareo, and perhaps even get some moni oil. Now, moni oil is basically a mix of coconut oil, of tiare flour, and then sandalwood. They use sandalwood here. That's a unique scent they have. You'll also then travel into Fataiva and the Bay of Virgins, and you'll arrive here and take the vessel in. And it's this Bay of Virgins for those that are into a little adventure. We've got a 10-mile hike. Now, you don't have to do this. It's an optional, but it is a lot of fun. And the breathtaking views that you'll take in are phenomenal, because there's quite a bit of height to it. It's not just 10 miles. It's the altitude that you kind of climb up to on this 10-mile hike. The views are phenomenal. And you see what I mean by I say this is the youngest island group? See how the islands are still jagged mountain peaks? And the walk back down, you walk through a little village. It's just delightful. It's just wonderful seeing people. That night, you'll be pumped up, like you'll be 10 foot tall and bulletproof. They have a big dinner under the stars. This wonderful Polynesian night, song and dance. It's just a perfect farewell to the islands of the Marquesas. Then from there, we're heading back to the Tuamotu archipelago. We're going to go and visit Rangiroa, which is the second largest motu in the world. This here is where to get in, there's like Papeete Pass, and it's actually through here. You can do some great diving. In fact, if you like to dive, the fish here in a rising tide are all coming one way. You're going the other way. You're like Marine Boy, and they're like darts just passing you. You've got sharks and dolphins. Dolphins love the Papeete Pass. They jump out and dance across the top of the water. You can dance across the top yourself with a glass-bottom boat under the guidance of a local and learn a bit about the fish. This underwater world is just amazing. You can take it in on a scuba diving adventure should you wish. It's a lot of fun. And then you can also take a little trip out to Tuamotu Atoll and down to down to a pearl farm and perhaps take in the pearl farming and maybe even purchase some pearls. The best black pearls in the world are found out here. And there's also the option of heading out to a little island called Makatea. Now, this Makatea is quite interesting because you can see by the side there, it's actually raised. Look at that. I mean, it's about 260 feet high off the ocean floor. It's like being thrust up out of like some action has kind of taken place to lift this up. And this Makatea, there's spectacular cliffs, and you've got low-lying coral reef around the actual. It's actually once a place where they'd mine phosphate. So you'll get a chance to visit the old port of Timor, and you'll get a chance to see that. You'll explore the island and see the phosphate pits there, and some of the remnants of the old railroad that was there to kind of move the phosphate to the actual wharfs. Spectacular views of the island. It is truly an amazing experience. They've actually got underground caves with portable water as well, so quite incredible. And then from there we depart after lunch for Bora Bora. What an amazing sight Bora Bora is. Something for the senses. That big lagoon, towering mountain peaks. You'll see Mount Otomanu kind of piercing the sky, a little wisp of cloud around its top, and below these turquoise lagoons. You'll pull up and a little picnic on a private motu, little picnic. And for those that like a bit of adventure, I'd recommend getting out in these little jet boats, the jet skis, to head out and explore and take a helicopter island tour, or maybe an off-road four-wheel drive experience to go into the interior of the island. Or maybe shark and ray feeding adventure. Yeah, the Bora Bora itself was back in the Second World War, was a U.S. military outpost, and the actual airstrip there was built by the Americans back then, and it was and soon after, to get access to actual Tahiti, you actually fly and land here, and they would have small float planes that would fly you from Bora Bora to Tahiti. So that's why Bora Bora is so fixed in our minds as being such an amazing draw. It's because this was the international airport for all the islands of Tahiti. And this was this military outpost. And so, it's got quite a connection to the North American market. And you can actually go exploring on a four-wheel drive tour and see remnants of their Americans' involvement, apart from, of course, the airstrip. From there we depart. We head from Bora Bora back into Papeete, and then from there we'll catch our onward flight. Now, what's included? Well, all your meals on board and ashore. You heard me? All your meals on board and ashore. Wine with lunch and dinner on board. Guest lectures and cultural enrichment classes. Every day there's something happening. It's like a Nat Geo cruise. Shore excursions and activities as per itinerary, because there are some activities that are optional. Not everybody's going to want to go horseback riding or go deep sea diving, but the shore excursions and activities that involve culture and exploring artifacts and archaeological sites and food and taking in the scenery of the island, they're organised and built in. So what's promised? What's part of this Aranui way? Well, it's a true, authentic Polynesian experience. Quintessential Polynesian experience. You're going remote, off the beaten path, soft adventure with this beautiful cultural immersion. And of course, the Polynesian staff and the crew, they're the ones that really make it. To me, they are the cornerstone of the experience. The only way to fully discover the Marquesas Islands is by this vessel, Aranui. So, and of course, you'll encounter some of the most genuine people, and you'll learn, even the people who travel, your fellow passengers, you'll find people who are drawn to this sort of experience, are drawn to people. They're drawn to making connections. They're seeking a way to learn about another culture, another people. And the wonderful thing is the crew on the Aranui do a great job of opening up. So, guys, there is a great opportunity right now, a wonderful special, $1,000 off per person. Book a 13-day cruise departing between January and March, and you'll save $1,000 per person. This flyer is available through your travel advisor, your destination specialist travel advisor. And I want to start now. I want to open up to questions right now. I'm sure you've got a few questions for me. I've asked Michael, who's the national sales manager for the Aranui, to be with me on the questions. Michael, are you there, my friend? I'm going to open up the question box.
Yes, I am. Hi, Jeff.
Ah, good to see you. Yeah, thank you for taking the time, Michael. We thoroughly appreciate having you here with us, and yeah, there's some good questions too. It looks. I've got one question here with regards to age. What sort of a crowd would be traveling on this?
Okay, so for the age ranges of the passengers, it depends on where they're coming from in the world. For the Europeans, it can go anywhere from people in their 20s all the way up into the 60s or 70s. They oftentimes will travel as families. Of course, as you explained, when you have 5 weeks of vacation, you have the time to do it. For the North American market, it tends to be older and retired simply because of the length of the cruise. Most people still working cannot take the 2 weeks required to do it. For the Australian and New Zealanders, they tend to be older and retired as well. The younger set for those two countries will generally go to places like Bali or Thailand, a place where you can party.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, in terms of, there's not, I mean, you really don't, it doesn't set itself up really for small children, does it? In terms of the activities, it's not really focused. It's more of a, I like to, it's an adventure cruise. It's an educational, it's like a Nat Geographic sort of cruise. And so young kids, I mean, you do take them, but it just tells a bit about how that plays out.
Well, okay, so for children, we don't really have an age restriction, though we do always advise everyone that since we do not have things like a kids club or activities that are geared towards children, you want to bring, if you're bringing children, you would want them to be interested in this kind of thing or be able to participate. For that, but we do not get that many children except during the summer holidays and Christmas. But it is the responsibility of parents to take care of their children. If we do get a certain number of children on board the ship, we will pull somebody from the staff and designate as a nanny to take care of the children. But that's not always the case. It all depends.
I hear you. Now, with regards to, I mean, the vessel itself holds about 230 passengers.
Yes.
But you're kind of currently you're running at about 50%. The social distancing is not really a big problem, isn't it, on this vessel? Because there's plenty of space on the vessel to kind of to socially distance.
Yeah. Okay. So for right now, in terms of capacity, based on reservations and so on, it is running about 50%. We are allowed to go up to 100% simply because there is the space to social distance. But the reality is a lot of people are not traveling. Some countries, the borders are not reopened. And so it puts us at about a 50% occupancy these days.
So now's a good time to travel. Now's a good time to go and escape on an Aranui cruise, because it's a great time to whole social distancing. It's quite easy to manage, and Aranui does it so well. As far as the time spent on shore, it's not determined. I mean, obviously, the ports you are pulling into are, it's the freighter has a purpose, and that is to move freight and passengers between these little villages and towns on the various islands you're visiting. But the time spent by the freighter in these villages is based on the experiences that are offered there. So plenty of time is available. The itinerary itself is set at 13 days, but in each of those visits, those port visits, you'll be there for an honourable amount of time to go and actually take in some great activities to really get the most out of each of those port visits.
Yeah, yes, we do in the Marquesas. We do spend a full day on each island.
Right.
So, because obviously, while they are unloading and reloading the supplies, it allows our guides to take everybody ashore and really experience and visit and see what there is to see in these islands. For example, and sometimes you will pull into port and spend a full day from that point. Fatuhiva is a great example where you start in the village of Omoa, and then the ship moves around to the other side to the Bay of Virgins. And so you reboard the ship and move to the other side. Or if you want to do the 10-mile hike, it starts in Omoa and takes you on to the Bay of Virgins, where then you rejoin the ship. So you have options depending on the island. You may move from one point to the other, or it will dock in one spot and you will have the full day from that point.
Thank you, Michael. With regards to wheelchair accessible, could you just kind of review that experience and what people? It's about being aware, isn't it? I mean, because it's going to work for some people, depending on the level. I mean, if you can use a cane, if you can walk, that's fine. But there are certain things that if you don't have use of legs, it's an adventure cruise after all. It is what it is, and we're going to a remote part of the world. It's access in some areas. While they can make it happen, we can carry you on board. It's whether or not the person who has that impediment to walking, that whether they will be happy being. No, it just depends on the person. But you can look after them, can't you, Michael?
Yes, we can. So the thing to remember is that the Aranui sails under French Pavilion. So it is regulated by French law. And so it requires to have handicap accessible cabins, public spaces, and so on. So on board the ship, we have elevators. People can move around. Once on the islands, for a lot, they're able to get people ashore. But for the thing to remember for some of the islands in the Marquesas, they're less developed, and so getting around may be a little bit more difficult. So we always advise passengers and guests you want a certain amount of mobility.
Yeah. So you're going to find that as far as any cruise, and it will vary depending on the time of year with reference to school holidays in North America or in Europe and so on, but you're looking pretty much, it will be 50% will be French, a quarter will be, 25% will be German, and then 25% will be English. And the English population will be made up of Americans, Canadians, Australians, Kiwis, so it's a UK people. So that's pretty much right. When I actually travelled, it was 50% French and 50% Australian and Kiwi. Yeah, it had to be a big group of Kiwis and Aussies that were on board. So it was kind of interesting too, because I mentioned earlier in that chat, I was telling them about the fact that it was actually the World Cup was playing at the time in France. It was being played in France. So the French were so interested in the game. It was so much fun to hear them singing, and it was just that's what I like about going somewhere exotic, like the Marquesas and or Tahiti in general is just got this lovely mix of humanity. I mean, the forefathers of the Aranui were of Chinese descent, Michael, and you've got Chinese, French, Tahitian, Marquesan. I mean, it's just I think to me, it promotes the true essence of what it means to escape to a foreign land, to kind of head out on a journey with the Aranui. I just love it. Mate, I've got to say that another question here on the food, and it's just in reference to arrangements for food.
Yes.
And is it sit down or buffet? Well, it's buffet breakfast and it's plated, isn't it? It's all plated.
Yes. Okay. So the meals for lunch and dinner are plated. They change from service to service. We have a full kitchen and fully staffed kitchen. So if there are any dietary requirements or allergies or things of that nature, there's a passenger form that goes out with confirmation. And we always ask everyone to make sure to fill it out completely so that the kitchen knows ahead of time of any modifications or restrictions. On the first day of sailing, the head of the kitchen, the restaurant, and the guides will sit down with the individual passenger and go over the form to make sure they've covered everything.
Oh, fantastic. So yes, they basically you cater to every need, and I've got to say too, with regards to the Aranui and the doing pre and post with organising your flights, we down at our answers will kind of pull that all together. We can help you out and customise your itinerary to use the very best flights and the airfares are available. Now is a good time to be promoting yourself. And I know a lot of travel advisors out there are also thinking, if you're sold a lot of cruises, if you are a cruise person, and you're looking for what's the first style of cruising you think is going to bounce back, I think you're looking at it. The Aranui is it's a journey that is safe, secure, and it's going to a pristine part of Polynesia that is just mind-boggling. So, Michael, thank you very much for being a part of our presentation today. You do a masterful job, and what a lovely product to represent. I appreciate your time. No worries, my friend. I got to say, guys, this is actually the cornerstone now of our little Polynesian presentation. I've been doing a whole series that involved. I started off doing Tahiti and a virtual vacation of Tahiti, which covered all the islands of French Polynesia and also incorporated the Aranui. I kind of had here Aranui in there as well. We then went and drilled down and we looked at Morea on a virtual vacation, the magical Isles of Morea, this wonderful Polynesian paradise. And then we visited heaven on earth, Bora Bora, yes, created by the gods. And now we finish with the fabulous Aranui. And the Aranui is an experience unto its own. So collectively, we've got some great presentations. Should you need a copy of any of these you'd like to kind of share with family and friends, talk to your travel advisor because they've got a complete set. Next week, Johnny will be taking you on a journey to Taiwan on a virtual vacation into the heart of Asia, this cultural cornerstone. And I've got to say, John, his experience within Asia is something, a passion he's had from a very young lady. He actually used to work as a guide in Australia and used to take groups all around Australia. But in his vacation, he would sneak away and head to Asia and backpack through Asia. So he's got some great insights into Taiwan. We have been saving all of our presentations. What's going to happen right now from October, November, and December is when we start making plans for what's going to happen in 2021. There's definitely some events happening in November that are probably forcing our hand then. We all want to escape. We can't wait till this election is over. I don't know about you guys, but I'm over it. I was over it probably about 6 months ago. But that's another story. Now's a good time to get those traveling juices flowing. There'll be great conversations around the Thanksgiving table, even if they are done remotely. You'll be talking about what you did in 2020, which was probably nothing, and you'll be making plans for 2021. So we've got some great, insightful videos that will take you on a journey explaining exactly what is necessary to enjoy the undertaking of what these destinations offer. Please talk to your travel advisor because the fun is in the planning, and your travel advisor is where the fun begins. I want to thank you very much for your time today, and I wish you all the very best. Here's to a great finish to the year. 2020, we'll be happy to see it go, but we'll be even happier when 2021 comes and we can start to travel again. Here's cheers, guys. Bye for now.